Everyone, welcome back to Gamespot's E3 stage. I'm your host, Mike Mahardy, here with UK editor Timur Hussein, and we are joined by head of Xbox, Phil Spencer.
Head of Xbox.
How's it going, Phil?
It's good. I always love E3. It's a fun time of year. Fans are they in yet? I don't know. I think they're just now coming in.
It's about to be an hour from now.
Down there,
yeah.
the energy was in the room. You could feel
Yeah.
it. The temperature in the room was also going up.
Open to the public this year, like 15,000 public tickets?
Yeah, you know, I'm on the board that runs the ESA that runs E3, and we've had a lot of feedback from both publishers and developers that they want to see more consumers in the show because, you know, E3 kind of was born out of us building games, retailers coming in, see what games they like so they could pre-order copies for the fall, get their orders ready. But now so much of gaming is about like this, direct to talking to the gamers, selling to gamers. So it's having consumers here, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah, and it's a big show for you and the Microsoft team, unveiling what used to be Project Scorpio. We now know it's the Xbox One X. What's it like for it to be finally out there? We know the price, we know when it's coming out, we know what it is.
Yeah, it's probably one of our biggest E3s ever for us when you just think about the importance of it. And we had our briefing on Sunday, new day for us in terms of our press briefing, showed 42 games, 22 with console exclusivity on Xbox One, and then unveiled Xbox One X. I'll try not to slip in and call it Scorpio over and over. And it was great. Like, the energy in the room was great. We've got the world's most powerful console. For a value customer who's looking for an everyday console, play games with their family, we've got S. We've got the world's most powerful with X, playing true 4K, had a great showing of the games on stage to show the power. You two weren't in the arena, right?
No,
So we built this 50-foot 4K screen in the arena, which was incredible. Did the 4K streams out to people so they could see the quality of the games. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the press conference itself because, you know, you have, as consoles, like you yourself, coming from a development background, you've been speaking extensively, interview after interview, about, you know, how consoles are making their way more to the PC kind of hardware upgrade cycle. And now you have Xbox One S, you have Xbox One X, and then you have PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 Slim, the Pro. When you look at the Xbox One X at the price it is, $499, who are you mainly targeting? I know you're trying to bring in people, are you trying to upgrade people from the S? Are you trying to bring in people from Sony maybe that like stick to PlayStation? Who is the crowd that is coming in? Because I mean, it seems like a fair price point, but it still might be a little bit hard sell, like to sell 4K at $499.
Yeah, and that's why the family of consoles is important. Because, like I said, there's a lot of here in the U.S. right now. The S is $249, and for a lot of people, they're coming in. Hey, I want to play FIFA, I want to play Madden, I want a console for the family, and that's going to be a great value for them. I mean, we all know, because we're in this industry, there's also a customer that's looking for the most premium experience. Right. One of the things I've talked about a little bit here, and I didn't really think about this before I got down here, but I remember 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years, I was talking about the Elite controller. Do you remember our Xbox? And that was $150. And I remember there was a lot of discussion around, hey, well, who's going to spend $150 on a controller? And I knew we had built a $150 controller. I felt it. I play with it all the time. And we put that in the market in the holiday, and we couldn't build enough. Like, they were all gone. But that's not for everybody. We sell, and Xbox One S, Xbox One X is the same thing. There's a premium customer who wants the very best, true 4K gaming. You know, that console's on a league on its own, right? There's nothing else that's close to it in terms of specification. And there's a core set of people out there who are going to want that very best experience, either on their 4K television, or we've also, through super sampling, enabled great fidelity on a 1080p television. Right. But most of the consoles we sell next year will be S, and that's fine. Right. I want to give people choice. I'm really thrilled with the reaction from the developer community to the power that we were able to put in the Xbox One X, and even the development console, and how people are getting their games up in a native 4K resolution so quickly. And give gamers choice, give consumers choice when they come in, build the best development platform we can for developers, and it was a good show, and I can't wait to launch. November 7th.
Yeah,
starting.
I do want to get into specifics in a little bit about the X itself and the games, but to talk about that, I mean, we're coming up to E3. I think what was Project Scorpio, the X now, was probably the biggest thing everybody was watching out for, right? But you only devoted like a small portion of your press conference to that before just rifling through 42 games. Was that kind of a reaction to the last couple E3s where people had maybe been criticizing not enough focus on the games, whereas, you know, I think the common refrain is that Sony, that's all they did, and I think they went for that this year. But this year, you just went through, it was 42 games, right? Yeah. Was that a reaction to last year? Was that just like a new direction that you want to take, even though you had like the most powerful console coming out?
It's a great question. There were a few things that came together. One, I made the decision a little while back that we weren't going to stay within the 90 minutes that we normally were at, so we had a little more time. We actually start planning for E3 back in December, funny enough, and we start to get, okay, what games do we want to talk about, both from our first party as well as third-party partners? How are things looking? And what are the themes? And so we picked on some themes that just honestly took us a little longer to go through in the presentation. We had a lot of great content. I mean, we wanted to show 4K games. And we were able to show Forza off the beginning, Motorsport 7, which I thought looked fantastic at 60 frames per second. Metro is a game I've loved for a long time. And I don't know that everybody knew what Metro was when we showed it on screen, but I remember it from the 360. We've got, obviously, the games on Xbox One. And I just looked at the visual fidelity of that, and I said, I want to put that on stage. Closing with Anthem, another great 4K. But then I also thought about, like, you're seeing games like PUBG. You know, PlayerUnknown Battleground, and able to get that on our stage and have Brendan up there talking about bringing it to console, working with us first on Xbox to have that game come. So we had this community section, and then there was this international thing I wanted to bring into our show, because I think it is. I've received the feedback. We want more games from more places on the planet. So to have Dragon Ball, Code Vein, Black Desert from Korea, like a lot of great games. Last Night, which
Metro.
a lot of people, and Metro, absolutely, from the Ukraine. It's so it was really the sections of content I wanted to talk about, smaller games, bigger games, games from everybody, and it just took more time. So I didn't actually plan for 42 games. It's kind of what we landed on, and tried to trim it back, and there was nothing I wanted to pull out of the show.
So one of the big things that people are picking up on is, you know, you announce a new console, and generally the kind of plan is to announce a big first-party game that kind of attaches to that console and shows the power of that console. And you did have a lot of games, but there was kind of a dearth of first-party games. You had Forza, and so people were obviously looking for a Halo or a Gears or something like that, but you didn't quite have that kind of big Microsoft kind of IP to be like, this is our you know, flagship product or title for this console. Can you speak to a bit why you decided to focus on third parties? Because at the moment it's like a lot of people will be looking at that and seeing a lot of third party games and then weighing up whether they want to buy an additional console for games that kind of exist in other places, PC or PS4 or...
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a fair question. I'll focus on both first party and third party. On the third party side, I'm confident that the best versions of all the third-party games are going to be on Scorpio. Okay. Like, the horsepower inside of that console just makes that kind of almost impossible for a developer not to end up there, because the console is just so much more powerful than anything else, whether it's the Pro, the Slim, or the S. It is, and it's priced differently, so it kind of should be. But on the third-party side, I wanted to make sure that people knew that the third-party games are going to run best on this console. So I wanted to have the third-party games like Assassins in our show, like Anthem at the end, which I thought looked incredible, and Patrick coming out and talking about Anthem running on the X on our stage. I thought that was a great opportunity. On the first-party side, Crackdown, Sea of Thieves, State of Decay, Minecraft in 4K, which doesn't always pick up the same kind of buzz here at E3, but I kind of tease some people when they kind of push on this. Minecraft's bigger than any game you're going to see on any stage people at E3. You know, and I thought the work that they did in 4K, well, maybe not to exactly to the E3 audience, though the reaction in the arena was actually nice to hear. Having Minecraft in 4K with the new graphics look might be more impactful than anything else that happens for us. Right, that is just such a huge opportunity. Having Ori show up there and be able to announce a new Ori, one of my favorites from this generation. On the Halo and Gears thing specifically, I was proud that we were able to show 42 games and not show Halo and Gears, because people know we're working on Halo and Gears, right? Those are important franchises for us. Gears is getting the update to 4K, and we were showing it in the arena at kind of a special section where people could go to see Xbox One X content in play. On 343, I was just down there 2 weeks ago. I can say they're doing some great work exercising what Xbox One X can do, both on some of their past games as well as looking forward. We'll probably have more to talk about that soon. But I think that both teams are actively working. But the fact that we could land 42 games on our stage, 22 with console exclusivity, and not have Halo and Gears, I thought was a strength.
So one of the things that you said there is that you want third-party games to be best on Xbox One, Xbox One X, sorry. How do you kind of balance that with games that have deals? For example, let's look at Destiny 2. It was announced that it's going to run at 30 frames per second on Xbox One X. And that is a game that you can according to the technical specifications, be run on Xbox One X at 60 frames per second. But then obviously they're in a situation where they can't have it run better on the Xbox than on the PS4 because they have a deal with Sony. Like, are you going around and encouraging people to kind of make that jump and, you know, really take, how do you balance that when you've got multi-platform games that all have some allegiance to another platform and can't look better on one than the other?
I'm going to struggle to not get myself in trouble on this one. You know, you mentioned earlier my developer background. Like, I started at Microsoft as a programmer. I've been around game development since the launch of the original Xbox. I'll just say, I'll say it. I don't know anything about other development deals. So you mentioned some things around clauses and stuff that I don't know anything about. But if anybody was to do a deal to hold back technical innovation on a video game anywhere else, that doesn't feel good for the industry to me. Right?
Sure.
That's I've said I'm not one who's a fan of going out and doing deals so that a certain skin isn't playable on a different platform or a different strike. And people will come and say, hey, you guys did that first with Call of Duty way back in the day. I wasn't in this position when that happened. That's not me ducking responsibility for it, but I didn't make that call. But the deals that we do now, and you saw our third-party relationships on stage with Shadow of War, with Assassins, you're not going to hear them say anything about, hey, a certain character that's not playable. Right. And I'd never go into a situation where I said, you can't do something that's possible on another platform in order to benefit. I don't think that's, I haven't seen those deals. If that started to happen in the industry, I don't think that's a great thing. I don't know that it has happened. So I know right now the technical capability on Xbox One X is beyond, like, I look at like Pro, Slim, S is kind of in one category, and then you've got a box, as you said, that can natively do a lot more. Whether developers choose to use the horsepower for frame rate, resolution, or just techniques within the frame is up to them. Like, I'm not going to dictate. I've heard this, like, hey, you should force all games to be 60 or something. I've never thought forcing the creative process is a great way to get great games.
I guess, like, it's clear that the Xbox One X is the more powerful console of it, but the worry amongst the community now is we're in a situation where you have this exponentially more powerful hardware than the competitor, but they're both kind of bottlenecking each other. So there's the situation where will we ever get to see what that console can do in its entirety? I think that's something that people are kind of afraid of.
For multi-platform games.
For multi-platform games. And in that case, it leaves it to you guys to show what it can do with first-party games.
Which we will. I'll say I was listening to my friend Jesse from ARC, did an interview this week where he just talked about the capability of Xbox One X and what was possible on the Pro. And I think the PS4 Pro is a nice console. I think it's a console that's just at a different price point and different capability than Xbox One X. So I don't say Scorpio, but so I don't kind of link them together. I agree with you that it's our job as an industry to showcase what hardware can do, whether it's in the PC space, whether it's in the console space. I'm really happy with the reaction. We talked about over 30 games from third parties that are going to get updates for Xbox One X. We got to show Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, Ghost Recon, Rocket League. So the team's doing some really interesting things. I think from load times, from resolution to stable frame rates, just because of the increased CPU, GPU, memory bandwidth capability of the box, I'm very confident that the games are going to show best on Xbox One X.
Cool. Yeah, as a follow-up question to that, and like, again, with your background as a developer, when you see consoles going the way of PCs with just so many different options to take from, does that make it harder for developers at all to account for the Xbox One X if you're a multi-platform? Like, you can tell the Coalition and you can tell 343 and make your game based on these specs and it'll look great, I'm sure, on the X. But when you have multi-platforms like we just mentioned, like, does that like muddle the process of like, what do we need to meet for this console? What do we need to meet for this console? Like, going into the future, do you think there's a way to standardize all that, or do you think it'll always kind of be a case-by-case basis?
And two things I'd say there. We picked the spec of Xbox One X looking at what was going on in the PC space, around 6 teraflops in the memory bandwidth, and frankly, now that we're giving 9 gigabytes to game developers, and said, okay, if you're already building a PC game, which most of the third parties do, and you have a 4K capability in your PC game, we want to make sure it's very easy to bring that over to Xbox One X and see your game running in a native 4K very quickly. And all of the reports, we've talked about this publicly, that we've been seeing, that's been happening very quickly. And then the team looks at the overhead that they have left on the box, and they're cranking things up to the different texture resolution and other things that they want to go do. I mean, you mentioned it. the number of developers that only target one platform on the planet's almost zero. Even if you're first party Sony, first party Microsoft, you're focused on 2 different specs. If you're a third party, you've got PC specs from dual Titan SLI in some PC, you know, all the way through maybe even an integrated GPU in a certain laptop. So I think the development process for third parties is already capable from a pipeline standpoint and rendering standpoint of creating assets and rendering assets at multiple specs. We picked Xbox One X looking at what we were learning because we happen to have Windows as well, so we kind of can see what's going on with DirectX and said, okay, this is going to be easy to bring 4K games over, and that's the result we're getting. Our dev kit and the engagement we have from the development community has been incredibly strong.
Sure. I do want to go back quickly to the press conference. I think after the press conference, maybe it was just the slew of games that you announced or showed off or said this is coming to Xbox, whether it was an ID at Xbox game or first party or third party game. I think there was some confusion among the public about the phrasing before some of the games. I know like we have since figured it out, but if people didn't read it, like there was console launch exclusive, there was exclusive, and then some just didn't have them. Could you clarify what those mean? Specifically, like as Tacoma, it's a console launch exclusive. Could you talk more about what that phrasing means?
Yeah, so console launch exclusive means the first console that game will launch on will be Xbox One.
Sure.
Okay. Some of those games, I think PUBG is a good example. It's already on Steam.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to launch on Xbox first. So what is the phrase that you use?
Right. Sure.
And when you're showing all of the games, you know, people talk about, well, how long is the timeline between when it launches on Xbox, when it launches on another logical next question. I don't know, honestly, anything about when those games will launch on another platform. So obviously I can't announce, hey, here's when these games will launch on another platform. It's really up to the developer in terms of when they want to do the work to make that work happen. So in order for consistency when there's kind of different variability in what things are happening, these are games that will launch first on Xbox, console launch exclusive. Some of them are already out on PC. So that's why we chose the term that we did.
Sure.
If you have feedback on it, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, no. Yeah.
It's just with things like Metro pop up and wondering, you know, where does that fall in? Because, you know, you said...
I think Metro, you said world premiere, if I'm remembering correctly, which just means this is the first time this gameplay has been shown.
In amongst all the other games that are like exclusive, there was a little bit of like confusion about what was showing up where, when, and that kind of stuff. But
it's good feedback. If it said Xbox One, Windows 10 exclusive, that means it's only shipping on those platforms.
Sure. Okay.
If it said world premiere, that means this is a game that the gameplay hasn't been shown before.
Okay.
Games like Metro, games like Assassins are going to be available on all platforms. Okay. Right? That's if it said console launch exclusive, that means the first console it launches on will be Xbox One.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense now. I was going to return to the idea of the Xbox One X and the iterative model that you've spoken about, following almost like a mobile phone style release cadence and that kind of thing. So how do you see the future of Xbox going beyond Xbox One X now? A lot of people will be wondering, like, this is a console that looks future-proof, but at the same time they're looking at the kind of talk about, you know, the mobile phone model where a new model is available every year. What kind of cadence do we have for Xbox One hardware going forward now? Is this going to be the last kind of member of the Xbox One family, or can we expect in a year or maybe 2 to have another version of this console?
Yeah, I don't have any kind of fixed iteration I feel like I have to do hardware on, which is kind of different than some of the mobile hardware companies. I think people know that watch it, the video game business, especially consoles, not made on selling consoles.
Right.
That's not where the money and profit is made in the business. Frankly, in a weird way, selling as few consoles as possible, selling as many games as possible, that's kind of a stupid scenario, but is more valuable than just selling consoles if people don't use them. I want to look forward and figure out where the important inflection points are of functionality in the game space that we could build a console for. 4K was one of those. Native 4K, I want a console in a native 4K space. It had been kind of a shorter amount of time since our Xbox One launched than kind of a normal console generation. Compatibility is incredibly important to me. We launched original Xbox backward compatibility on stage. We've been doing a lot of work on 360 because I'm a believer that you should be able to play the great games of the past. I think, you know, certain people might not understand why people want to go play those games, but I think it's important as an art form for us to understand, well, what is Quake and why, like, you know, Quake's coming back and what a great thing, right? People can see so much of what is in gaming today was built on great games of the past. I want this compatibility to be something that's core to what we're about. So when we said we're going to go build a 4K console with Xbox One X, I wanted to be part of the family of Xbox One, so that you knew if you were an S customer or a One customer and you decided to move to Xbox One X to get 4K, your games and accessories were going to move with you. So then looking forward, well, what is the great step in hardware technology and software technology that we need to take advantage of next in console? I don't know. If you know what it is, please tell me.
I'm keeping that to myself.
I look at, yeah, that's smart.
It's competition.
You know, I think about frame rate. Like people, is it 120 frames per second? If you look at that, TVs don't support that, so we've got to go work with the TV manufacturers if that was a place. We've been doing that with HDR and 4K now for a few years, and that relationship is good. It's probably not 8K. We're probably further out from 8K. Is it something around mixed reality, and is that going to be the mix where we really see something? This is all the kind of investigation that we're doing. I want our next console to be about an important enabler of something that's interesting to the game developers and gamers themselves, not just, okay, we've clicked the clock has ticked to a certain date and I need to go ship another piece of hardware.
Okay, cool.
I do want to ask you something, kind of a personal question. You know, you come in, no, not, we can save those for later, but no, you come in and it seems like, I don't want to put it harshly, it seems like a lot of times as head of Xbox, up until like now, you've been almost like fixing things, rebuilding and kind of cleaning up messes. That might be a harsh word, but you know, like the messaging around the Xbox One, the original Xbox One's launch was a little bit muddled, and I think you've gone on record saying could have done a few things better. But the Xbox One X seems to be like your baby, like your first thing. Can you talk about that kind of dichotomy between those two parts of coming into Xbox?
And it's worth adding to that, like, there's talk of Kinect not being involved with Xbox One X and that kind of stuff. It's almost it feels like drawing a line in the sand from what came before, whilst not completely cutting it off, but it feels a little bit more you in this iteration of the console.
I'm always uncomfortable when it becomes about me, because there's thousands of people that work on Xbox that are smarter than I am and work harder than I am. Honestly, like, I walk out on stage, the thing that's in my head is I'm representing a very talented and passionate team, and I want to make them proud. And so it's not about me, right? It's about a team of passionate people that really care about gaming and want to do a great job. For us, I've been in the job a little over 3 years. Both S and X were hardware that this leadership team thought about. We wanted to take the form factor of Xbox One, make it a little bit smaller, which we did with S, add HDR, the 4K Blu-ray, and I love how S is doing. Like, it's a incredible, for me, it's an incredibly strong platform and piece of hardware. And X was a power. Like, I've been around Xbox since we shipped the original one. I do think Xbox should be about power, and I think we'd kind of lost that at the launch of Xbox One. And when I saw 4K and I saw such an interest there on the PC side, I thought we had some unique capability to do something. It was going to be a year later than what the competition chose to do, but I wanted to hit something that could really do 4K, so I knew I was going to have to wait. There was a risk in that, on waiting a year. But the team has been very kind of committed to making Xbox great, and I love the way the fans reacted. You know, we come out, I feel that the first-party teams, more work to do in first party, to be honest, but we're totally focused on that. On the Kinect thing specifically, the Kinect adapter that works on S works on Xbox One X, so you can plug it in. But I'm listening to what our customers want. Same question when people have asked me here about VR and what the answer is there, and I'm committed in that space. I see it happening on Windows. Honestly, I don't get a lot of demand from our customers for me to invest a lot in platform for mixed reality on console, both on content, but I'm going to listen to what our customers want, and that's what we're here for.
I guess the other thing is worth bringing up is, like, obviously Sony has a very commanding presence in the current generation, and people are always inclined to kind of pit you against each other, but a lot from your perspective, and since you started kind of taking control of it, it seems like you're trying to build, instead of aiming for who sells the most consoles, it's trying to build that Microsoft and Xbox ecosystem, and having, PC feeding into that, and Xbox One. So can you speak a bit about how that kind of has progressed and how it's kind of coming together, especially with the introduction of these new consoles, and how you see it kind of going forward?
Yeah. Even something like Minecraft, which we ship everywhere, right? I ship it on PlayStation, ship it on the Switch. It's doing well. It does well across all platforms. I think about gamers first. I think about games first. I want us as a games industry to continue to grow. Like, that's why I'm here. There are 1 billion gamers on the planet. Our business is doing well on Xbox. Sony, Sean, Andy, those guys have done a great job with PlayStation, and I love what Nintendo's done with the launch of the Switch. 5 years ago when I was here, it was all like the death of console. Everybody's going to play on their iPad. Why don't you guys go home, right? That was, honestly, like that was the questions, and now we're sitting with Sony doing really well. We're doing well. The Switch has come out of the gate incredibly strong. I don't get those questions anymore, so that feels good. I see a vibrancy in games that are here across all platforms. I watched Sony yesterday. I mean, I thought Spider-Man looked great. You know, they've got a strong collection of games that they're showing. Their first party's doing well. We showed 42 games. Mario this morning. Like, you know, it's a great time to be in this industry, and for people to try to make this industry about fighting with each other as opposed to growing the industry itself, I just don't think is a long-term view on an activity I love, which is playing games. I grew up playing games with my dad. I played games with my daughters. I want to be playing games for the next 40, 50 years as long as I'm around. And I think the infighting that I feel both on the internet, and I'm sure you guys see it on your message boards, it doesn't feel like an investment in what does it mean for gaming to grow. We don't have to see another company fail in order for us to succeed.
Right.
It's not part of the math of running the business.
There you go. Heard it from Phil Spencer. Stop the salt. No more. Leave it alone.
I'm sure that just lit up a bunch of
I do have a bigger overarching question about based on the hardware side. You do have. I'm worried that you know, like people like us who are in tune with the video game like hardware lexicon, kind of people who have traditionally stuck to PC and know that, you know, every once in a while you upgrade. Is there any concern moving forward that people who are still used to just like get a PlayStation 3, then you get a 4 like 6 years later, then you get a 5 however many years later, if that's what comes to be, has there been any concern within Microsoft, like how do you market like these console upgrades to people who might not understand where that is going, who are still used to that traditional cycle of the new consoles?
Yeah, so just to really if somebody bought an Xbox One at launch and they want to keep that console forevermore, that is a great customer for us. I don't have to go sell them an S. I don't have to go sell them an X for the business. If you keep your launch day Xbox One console and continue to play games and play with your friends and buy games, that's a great scenario for us. So I'm not in a space where I have to go sell somebody another piece of hardware. I think about the new consoles we do as a way to expand our business and expand people playing on our platform. But if somebody wants to stay on that first console, this is why compatibility has been so key to me, because I don't want somebody to feel, and console is kind of the only place left that creates these somewhat artificial step functions where everything you bought from us is now no longer valid and you have to go rebuy things. That's why, like, I love the OG Xbox back compat 360, putting the 360 games in Game Pass. So if people don't want to go buy the 360 games but rather subscribe for $10 a month and get access to those games, I think that's a strength in our business. So in terms of instructing people or informing people, I'm in the business. If you want to go out and get a new console, I want to have a great console for you. And I've got a family from the value, great entry level Xbox One S, does most of what a lot of people are going to want to do. If you're a gamer that wants the premium, high-fidelity experience, I've got that in the Xbox One X. If you want to stay with your Xbox One, and that's where you want to play, love you. You're a great customer for us.
That is quite a bold and brave thing to do, though, right? It's creating this hardware, investing in it, and then putting it out there and just going, if you feel like it, pick one up. It's kind of like, you don't see that happening a lot, so it's kind of like, must be scary to put that out there. It's on some level, right?
Yeah, it's kind of been the console business for a long time, and I know we don't really talk about it this way, but this is why, and I know I definitely get some feedback on this, when I think about the health of Xbox, I think about how many people are playing games. Like that is, if you're playing on a 1 or you're playing on an S or you're playing on an X, that's actually not the thing that creates like the great relationship between us and our customers. So consequently, I focus on how many monthly active players do we have on Xbox Live. That's the critical thing for us. And if those people are playing on Windows, that's great. Right? I love that we have our first-party games on Windows. We even get a lot of usage now on mobile devices. We got Minecraft there, and we're connecting all the Minecraft worlds. We showed that on stage. User-generated marketplace, so people can buy content and use it in different places. Like it's really about how many players you have, how many games they want to go play and they buy, and their friends, and all the stuff that they're doing. And the hardware business has always just been a way of bringing people into the ecosystem. It is not the business itself.
Okay. So one of the biggest cheers that you got at the press conference
OG
was OG Xbox. So can you briefly, I know we got very little time left.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you briefly talk about what people can expect, the kind of how you're going to be releasing games for them, the disc-based element of it, and what improvements they'll
Yeah, I'll do this quick. So we only showed Crimson. Crimson's one of my favorites from the original Xbox. I thought it actually looked really good. It was one of the things, putting it on a 4K screen, I was a little worried about how some of the old games would look. Discs work. So if you got your discs, when the game's been enabled, you'll be able to put a disc in. So just like 360, it's not every game. It'll be a smaller number of games than it is on 360, mainly for rights reasons. Others, like some of those companies, we go back and the companies that publish those don't exist anymore, and we do have to get rights clearance and other things. But we'll talk more about what's coming. It's coming this year, and I'm excited about the list.
Awesome.
So are we.
Phil Spencer, thank you so much for coming on our stage.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and have a good rest of the show.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so if you were watching, you can go watch this video later on if you want to come back to it, but we do have more demos coming up throughout the day. Next, we have Ubisoft's South Park: The Fractured But Whole, and we will
Make sure
see
you
you
say
then.
that correctly.
The Fractured But Whole. We'll see you then.